Robert G. Hagstrom, The Warren Buffett Way. Many people think of Warren Buffett as a statistical anomaly, so you might be surprised to find out what he attributes his success to. It isn't intelligence or an advantageous start. It isn't a supernatural insight into the market. Distilled into the simplest terms, it's just following sound business practices and putting in time, both of which can be taught. In this blink, we'll get into Buffett's background and the early lessons that set him on the path to investment success. Then we'll discuss the influential figures and decisions in his life. After that, we'll outline his basic business tenets, the psychology of finance, and the importance of rational thinking. A promising start. When he was 11 years old, Warren Buffett made his first investment. He'd saved $120 from entrepreneurial endeavors like selling soda and peanuts. So he studied the price charts and confidently made his purchase. But as it often happens, the stocks dipped, immediately losing value. When they rose again to slightly above what he paid, Buffett panicked and sold at a profit of $5. Shortly after that, the stock value skyrocketed. He'd learned two tough lessons. He would never again obsess over what he paid for a stock, and he would never sell for anything less than a substantial profit. After that, everything Warren Buffett touched seemed to turn to gold. Not that he didn't work for it. He graduated college and then fought for a position at Graham Newman Corporation, where he got his real education in trading. Then, at the age of 25, he started his first limited liability partnership with a $100 investment and the simple goal of beating the Dow Jones by 10% a year. He ended up beating it by 22%. And over a 12-year period, grew his investment to $25 million. In 1965, 4 years before ending the partnership, Buffett bought Berkshire Hathaway, which had begun in 1889 as a cotton manufacturer. As the textile part of the business was slowly dying, Buffett made a decision that would shape the rest of his life. In 1967, he bought up the outstanding stock in two decently healthy firms, National Indemnity Company and National Fire and Marine Insurance Company. It was a dramatic departure from textiles, and it took Berkshire Hathaway from $2.9 million in securities to $5.4 million in just 2 years. This decision set the company on course to become the investing giant it is today. From his first limited liability investment of $100, Warren Buffett is now worth over $100 billion. Many people consider him to be a systemic anomaly. There's a long-accepted school of thought in the investor world called the efficient market hypothesis that says you can't beat the market. And Buffett himself expresses that he won a genetic lottery, having the right skills in the right moment in time to flourish. That said, the rest of this blink will explore Buffett's ability to beat the market not with chance, but with skill. A good education. In 1921, a grandmother in Los Angeles opened a candy shop in her neighborhood. Her name was Mary C., and C's Candies became a multi-generational, multi-million-dollar company. It survived some of the hardest times for a small business, including the Great Depression and the sugar rationing that happened during World War II. The company survived because it was just that good. Quality took them the distance. So when grandmother C's heirs were ready to sell in 1971, they did so for $25 million to Berkshire Hathaway. To understand the point of this story, we have to go back and talk about the many influences in Warren Buffett's life. The first was Benjamin Graham, author of Security Analysis and The Intelligent Investor. In 1926, Graham partnered with Jerome Newman to form the company that Buffett would work for when he graduated college. In investing, Graham had one simple rule: don't lose. He leveraged his attention to research and detail to identify two key factors in a good investment. First, look for companies selling for less than 2/3 of their value. And second, make sure the stocks have a low price-to-earnings ratio. Buffett became a student of this approach all the way up to the point that he bought See's Candies. The second influential person in Buffett's education was Philip Fisher. Fisher started an investment counseling firm shortly after the stock market crash with two assumptions. First, investors would definitely be looking for advice. And second, they'd have time on their hands to talk. Fisher dived into the research of finding out what it takes to identify a good investment, and he developed a philosophy quite different from Graham's. Rather than purchasing a bargain, he believed in purchasing quality. One of the ways Fisher influenced Buffett was through his long-standing friend and unofficial investment partner, Charlie Munger. Charlie started out a lawyer dabbling in investments. After creating a partnership similar to the one Buffett started and reaping similar rewards, he left law and focused on investments. He bought Blue Chip Stamps, which later merged with Berkshire Hathaway, at which point Charlie became vice chairman. Buying See's Candies was Charlie's idea, and it was based on Fisher's philosophies. See's wasn't selling for less than its value, meaning it wasn't a bargain, but the quality was there. Buffett was reluctant to veer from his tried-and-true Graham methods of investing, but he allowed himself to be talked into it. 10 years after the $25 million purchase of See's, he was offered $125 million to sell it. He passed, and See's Candies is still held by Berkshire Hathaway to this day. The Buffett Buying Guide. So, how does Warren Buffett decide what businesses to buy? Over the decades, he has developed 12 tenets, or checkpoints, to determine whether he's willing to make an investment. First, there are 3 basic business characteristics. Warren Buffett has long been a believer in investing only within the realm of your own knowledge. In other words, he believes you should know the businesses you're buying. The businesses should be simple and easy to understand, have an operating history that's consistent, and offer a favorable long-term outlook. Next are the 3 qualities he looks for in management. Evaluating management isn't as simple as evaluating a business. There are some metrics you can use as indicators, but there is also just a lot of interviewing and having conversations. Fisher called this the scuttlebutt process, and it involves gathering anecdotal information through the corporate grapevine. First, Buffett looks for managers who take care of their finances rationally. That is, in a way that Buffett approves of. Second, he looks for leaders who are candid and honest with their shareholders. Third, he seeks management that resists the urge to go along with the crowd, even when it means admitting mistakes or changing courses. Then comes the 4 financial decisions. Buffett isn't interested in yearly results. He prefers to look at the 5-year averages. When reviewing a company's finances, Buffett looks for a few specific things: return on equity, or the comparison of operating earnings to shareholder equity; owner earnings, which are somewhat based on estimates but still considered closer to the whole story than cash flow; high profit margins; and increasing market value. Firstly, he looks at two simple market considerations. First of all, is the company a good value? This could mean that it's being sold for less than its intrinsic value, or it could mean that its value has a lot of long-term potential. Second, is the price good? The stock market price is what it is, but is that price one that is commensurate with the value of the company? Warren Buffett's ultimate goal is to buy good companies that are managed with integrity and have an upward trajectory with the potential for massive returns. His tenets have been developed as a result of decades of investment experience. But being a good investor takes more than business savvy. Next, we'll talk about behavioral finance. Meet Mr. Market. Imagine you own shares in a business with your partner, Mr. Market. Fortunately, your business is economically stable and has a promising future outlook. But that doesn't matter to Mr. Market, because he's prone to sudden shifts in temperament. Every day, Mr. Market offers to buy your shares in the company. Some days he's in a great mood and sees the future as bright and sunny. On those days, he offers you a high price. Other days, he sees nothing but doom and gloom, so he offers you a low price. The good thing is, he makes the offer every day, no matter how much you reject him. You can't hurt his feelings. The last thing to know about Mr. Market is that you're free to ignore him or accept his offer, but you absolutely should not submit to his influence. This little analogy was created by Ben Graham, who we discussed earlier. It's designed to illustrate the importance of being psychologically ready for investing. To be free of Mr. Market's emotional upheavals, a field of study was formed called behavioral finance. Students of this field have discovered several psychological traps that cause investors to make bad decisions. Among them are simple concepts like overconfidence, loss aversion, and the lemming effect, which is the tendency to follow the crowd. Another psychological trap that's slightly more complicated is the overreaction bias. This is the tendency to recognize a few unrelated events as a trend when, in fact, they aren't. You can get into trouble buying or selling when you overreact to a set of circumstances that aren't actually trends. Mental accounting is another insidious trap. Say you find a $5 bill in your coat pocket at the start of winter. That's bonus money, right? But last summer, it was something different. Maybe it was your lunch money. So it feels like the money is on a different account now. Your view has changed with the circumstances. You might be inclined to spend the $5 for something luxurious instead of buying lunch. It's bonus money after all. The truth is, it's just $5. Don't let your emotions trick you into believing something belongs to a special account. The last trap is called myopic loss aversion. This was created by two researchers named Richard Thaler and Shlomo Bernatzi, who discovered that holding an investment for longer makes it more attractive to the investor, but only if it isn't elevated frequently. In other words, don't look at your stocks every day. This is a long game. The fact is, most of the movement you see in the market is based on emotions, which are stronger than reason. To be a smart investor, you have to be psychologically prepared to ride out those shifts. And that requires patience, which we'll get to in the final section. Patience and rationality. A study analyzed the 1-year, 3-year, and 5-year returns for S&P stocks over a 43-year period. The results showed that the proportion of stocks that doubled in 1 year was only 1.8% on average. For the 3-year report, it was 15.3%. And for the 5-year report, 29.9% had doubled. The aim of the study was to answer the question of whether large returns are possible from long-term investments. And the answer is yes. But still, most stock market activity happens in a reactionary state with short-term thinking in mind. Obviously, this isn't how Warren Buffett operates, and that's what makes him so special. But why is he different? Buffett is on record as saying his abilities have nothing to do with intelligence, and everything to do with patience and rationality. That's a key distinction. Rationality is not the same as intelligence. In 2011, Daniel Kahneman wrote a best-selling book called Thinking Fast and Slow. It's based on what psychologists have long referred to as System 1 and System 2 thinking. System 1 thinking is fast and requires relatively little effort. It's based on your intuition and at-hand knowledge. If you see a stock you're interested in and do some quick maths to assess its trajectory, compare some numbers, and make a decision, you're operating in System 1, along with most stock market investors. System 2 thinking is slow and rational. It requires reflection and good judgment. To use System 2 thinking, you need self-control, which can often feel unpleasant. The payoff is too far away to be rewarding in the moment. Essentially, we're talking about patience. A Yale University professor named Shane Frederick did an experiment to illustrate this. He gathered some Ivy League students from various schools and asked them 3 maths questions, ranging from simple to complex. But even the simple one required them to pause and think. If they jumped to the first question, they'd get it wrong. Over half the students got the wrong answer. Frederick's conclusions were that people aren't used to using System 2 thinking. And worse, the System 2 part of the brain doesn't do a good job of monitoring System 1 for errors. One of the problems caused by failing to exercise patience and rational thinking is something called a mindware gap. This is when you miss information because you don't have the patience to go through the important steps of researching an investment. If you were Warren Buffett, you might read the annual reports of the company you're interested in, along with those of its competitors. But you wouldn't stop there. Next, you'd run some models to assess different growth rate possibilities. You'd go on to get to know the capital allocation strategy of the company's management. You'd even start talking to people involved in the company as well as its competitors to get the scuttlebutt, as Fisher called it. To attain Warren Buffett-level success, you have to live in System 2 thinking. It may be uncomfortable at first, but ultimately it can lead to amazing long-term yields. The Warren Buffett Way by Robert G. Hagstrom. You've learned that even someone as rich and powerful as Warren Buffett can come from humble beginnings. From his first investment at age 11 to his $100 investment in his limited partnership to the over $100 billion net worth of today, Warren Buffett played the game differently and accomplished the seemingly impossible. With some sound business sense combined with psychological resilience, patience and rational thinking, Buffett himself believes that anyone can repeat his success.